Number 4, Katrina Shanks.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. To the Minister of Housing, what reports has
Order, I say to both members, please, I've called Katrina Shanks and I expect some respect to be shown to her. Katrina Shanks.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. To the Minister of Housing, what reports has he received about the stakeholder engagement carried out by the Housing Shareholders Advisory Group?
The Honourable Phil Heatley.
Well, Mr Speaker, on Sunday I made public the results of engagement carried out by a housing advisory group, including the Auckland City Mission and Salvation Army representatives. The overwhelming majority of community housing organisations supported the 19 recommendations made by the group and called for the government to act decisively to address the current challenges of housing the most vulnerable in our society face.
Katrina Shanks.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. What is the government committed to in social housing?
The Honourable Phil Heatley.
Oh, Mr Speaker, this government is committed to income-related rents. We're committed to housing those most in need in their time of need. We're also committed to increasing the total quantum of social housing in New Zealand, although we don't make Labour's claim that the state and the taxpayer has to own it all. However, we are saying that the state cannot afford to do this on its own, and I've been personally heartened by the number of social housing organisations who are willing to step up and increase their capacity to house more families in need, as long as they receive significant direct resourcing support from us, and I'm happy for the opportunity to work with them.
Katrina Shanks.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. What options are you considering to better assist those most in need?
The Honourable Phil Heatley.
Mr Speaker, no decisions have been made yet. However, the group's recommendation of working more closely with community housing organisations and providing them with capital, land or houses in order to support them to grow is attractive to us. Their ability to provide 1, growth, 2, affordable rentals with our support, and 3, secure tenure would be essential. Mr Speaker, we also want to debate the current concept of a state house for life, and the introduction of reviewable tenancies would allow us to assess a tenant's circumstances every 3, 5 or 10 years, rather than them being in a house for life regardless of significantly or dramatically improved circumstances.
Question of Moanamaki.
Supplementary to the Minister. Does he agree with the strong position expressed both in the stakeholder feedback report and by members of his advisory group that any increased role for the community housing sector in the provision of social housing must be as well as, not instead of, continued investment from government?
The Honourable Phil Heatley.
Well, Mr Speaker, not only would it be as well as, what it would mean is that together the government and social housing organisations would work together and pool their resourcing. The idea here is that social housing organisations would have a capital base and therefore they would be able to borrow and also get commitment from people that they know to purchase more houses. So the goal is to increase the amount of social housing in New Zealand while ring-fencing the government's commitment. We plan to give no less money or put no less money into social housing, but we also have said that we cannot put any more in.
Moana Maki.
Can we take from his comments in August that the government will be expecting charitable giving to replace government investment in social housing, and his comments this week that, quote, we're going to slow down and probably stop and go to the community housing sector, end quote, that he is going to expect the community housing sector to step in and do the job that his government should be doing?
The Honourable Phil Heatley.
Well, in fact, the community housing sector is expecting to step in and help us with the job of housing more people in New Zealand. They think the amount of social housing in New Zealand should increase, and they want to do it. The main point of us resourcing them through capital or land or cash or houses is that they would have a secure base to borrow off and increase the number of houses they build and supply. And that's good news. They want to work with us.
Moana Maki.
Can he appreciate that his newfound desire to help those most in need of housing rings a little bit hollow when he personally stopped the building of 500 state houses in Auckland for the simple reason that the Prime Minister didn't want them in his electorate?
The Honourable Phil Heatley.
Mr Speaker, I think the difficulty with the Labor Party in this point is that they've lost the moral high ground when it comes to state housing because they left the houses in such serious state of disrepair. Rats, Mr Speaker, rats in the houses, roofs collapsing, dampness, wetness, mould. It was an absolute disgrace. And if this government hadn't come in with its vacuum cleaner and its chequebook to clean up these state houses, I don't know what sort of health problems we would have in New Zealand.
Question number 4, the Honourable Clayton Cosgrove.